As Russia continues its invasion of the Ukraine, it bears remembering the beginning of World War II. On September 1st, 1939, Germany would invade Poland, and it would plunge the European powers into another world war. But it was the earlier acts of aggression to reclaim German territory that would eventually spark the flame. Let's go ahead and bring the past into the present for this brief history lesson. On March 7, 1936, in a clear violation of the Treaty of Versailles, German troops reoccupied the Rhineland, a demilitarized zone between France and Germany. This move came in response to a treaty between France and Russia, and Hitler felt if war broke out again, France would use this area to build up its forces. European leaders did not respond. 2 years later, in March 1938, Germany would invade Austria under the false pretense that the government had fallen into chaos and that the German troops were necessary to restore order. In September of that year, Germany would look to Czechoslovakia and restore the northern part, the Sudetenland, to Germany. Upon this act, British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain met with Hitler and left with an agreement that Germany would not take the rest of Czechoslovakia in a move he called Peace in Our Time. Guess what happened? He invaded the rest of the country in 1939. As you can see, the European powers were more concerned with appeasement and avoiding another conflict. The United States too turned a blind eye to this act of aggression, as they were still coming out of the Great Depression. Now, let's fast forward to August 8, 2008, when Russia invaded Georgia. Despite lasting only a handful of days, it was the first time Western leaders would offer very little in response to Russia. In 2014, Russia would again move, this time to annex Crimea from the Ukraine. It drew a lot of protests and sanctions, but Russian troops moved swiftly to occupy all military bases. And now, in February 2022, we have the next move by Russia invading the Ukraine outright. As with Germany invading Austria, this is under false pretenses. My goal in doing this is simply just to point out the historical similarities, not to assume that there's going to be a third world war. In the 1930s, Democratic President FDR had some idea that war was inevitably on the horizon. He slowly built the American military up through his public works and brought the country out of isolationism. Now, the American military is always on the ready, and only time will tell if Democratic President Biden is as prepared as his predecessor. Personally, I'm against the U.S. involving itself in foreign affairs, but sometimes aggression like this needs to be checked, and if it's unchecked, history is doomed to repeat itself.